Welcome back to Anbennar and our glorious nation of Bianfang. But today we're going to be a little peaceful, I think. We want to embrace the Renaissance so that we can become the next stage of Bianfangi evolution and become a Dahui. We could go toward the command right now. We're part of a coalition against them, and there's something to be said for, fighting a coalition war against the command and trying to reduce them down to size by forcing them to release land. The command is on no manpower. They're likely relying on their unique mercenary bands. If we look, we can see they've got Monstrous Band, they've got Army of the Lion command. The command definitely isn't doing their best right now. I would think about jumping them, but those mercenary bands are actually very good. To be fair, we might win. I'm just not sure it's something we want to waste time on doing right now. I'd rather focus on increasing my relationships with these northern nations so we can vassalize them and transition over to becoming Dahui so that we can progress further down our mission tree. There we go. I think we're going to embrace the Renaissance. We've just had an influx of money from the monopolies. We could wait for the price to decrease more by letting it spread, but I think we're just going to embrace it right now. And then we're probably going to sell it to somebody. We'll sell it to our vassal here, first of all. Yes, now we're going to grab Renaissance Thought. For our next idea group, we're very far ahead when it comes to mill. We've got good mill income because of our high mill stat rulers. So there's something to be said for going for a mill idea. I really like the offensive ideas. We could also go for quantity though, just to push our numbers even higher. I really hate going quantity because I feel like if I go quantity, I'll go quantity every game. So it's one of my, shall we say, house rules that I avoid going quantity if possible. There's something to be said, of course, for going diplomatic. Diplomatic's amazing, but we're a little bit behind on diplomatic points right now, and we're doing a lot of integrating of vassals, and we're likely going to be doing a lot of integrating vassals. So we'd be progressing rather slowly through the diplomatic ideas. With that in mind, I think it may be better just to grab a mill idea, which we can progress through much faster. But before we think about that, we are now going to become an imperial Yan Shen. Nearly forgotten are the days when kingdoms reigned in Yan Shen, the days of legendary dynasties and heroes, brought to an end by the hands of Haramar. Though we were never fully united, the machinations of the Haramari and their eunuchized officials served to partition us even further. The petty disputes between the eunuch lords and merchant princes have left the Yan weak and divided for long enough. It's time for an emperor to be crowned and guide our people to a bright and glorious future. Let Dahui take physical form in our reality. This ascends us to an empire. We expand our mission tree, as you can see, much further, and we gain access to the unique government reform, the Radiant Empire, which fixes us to our dynasty, which is always what we want to see. Gives us a lot of government capacity, 150, increases national manpower gain, and gives us yearly absolutionism, which is always nice. Now we can switch out to the Dahui ideas. Honestly, I kind of prefer the Bianfangi ideas. Let's look what they do. Inventory cost minus 10%, which isn't much. Inventory normally just cost 10 ducats, so this means they cost 9. Not amazing, obviously. Then combat ability plus 10% for inventory, which is quite nice. And the final 5 discipline when we finish the ideas. Our first idea, army drill gain, doesn't matter that much, but it helps with getting army professionalism up, which is what we need as Bianfang to progress down our mission tree anyway. Then Dawn Clouds of the West, which decreases core creation cost by 10%. Nice, not amazing. Caravan power plus 20% is actually quite useful because of a lot of these markets are land markets, and we're going to have a lot of land markets. Cost of reducing war exhaustion and harsh treatment decreased by 25% and 20% respectively. Depending on how you play, you might not even ever use these. I know I rarely use them, so it's not that useful. General cost minus 10% and military tech cost minus 5%. Nice, I guess. Prestige decay minus 1. Not really that useful, as we're likely just going to sit at max prestige pretty much forever. And then maximum absolutionism plus 10. That's pretty nice. So now we'll switch over to the Dahui ideas, which I honestly don't think are as good. Let's see. There are quite a few good things. Let's do it. So for the Dahui ideas, we get national unrest minus 2 and governing capacity plus 10% and regiment cost minus 20% as our final ideas. I'm not sure I prefer the regiment cost minus 20% as compared to the 5 discipline. The government capacity plus 10% is definitely nice, and national unrest, I mean, who cares about unrest? We'll just crush them, right? Our first idea gives us legitimacy, which isn't something we really care about. Second idea decreases the cost of advisors by 15%. Decreasing the cost of advisors is always great though, because it just means we can have more advisors and higher level ones at lower costs. We also get an extra 2+ for our possible advisors. Then we get 5 discipline. I suppose it means the discipline at the end of the tree has been moved to the start of the tree when you become Dehui. Then we get leader fire +1, leader maneuver +1, global trade power +15, monthly autonomy change of -10, and finally an administrative efficiency +5. That's excellent. I do miss some things though from the Bianfang tree. I miss our inventory being slightly better at 10%. Now our inventory is the same as everyone else's. We will get to buff our armies a little bit through going down our tree, but I'll miss having slightly better inventory than everyone else. I'll also miss that 10% max absolutionism, and that even though it was only 10%, that 10% core cost reduction, as we're going to be doing a lot of coring. But as discussed, I think we're going to go for the offensive ideas, just to buff out our military even more than we already have done so. We've of course lost our beautiful white colour and been replaced by this somewhat blue, cyanish colour. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to progress down our mission tree for a while because we need to do a lot of things essentially to progress down. We need to essentially conquer all of the Yan Shen and integrate all of our vassals in the territory, which is going to take a little while, as things tend to. Being an empire means we've automatically accepted all of the cultures of the Yan though, which is definitely excellent. Now we'll be able to extract even more wealth and manpower from them than we were doing previously. We've been building up our relationship with this little nation up here so that we can vassalize them. We didn't really need them as a vassal, but getting the connection with them will bring our border with Jiangdu close enough that we can then vassalize them, and that they're who I really want to vassalize. Kind of a roundabout way of doing things, but getting these guys as a vassal is pretty great because they have cores on all of this land that we can then fight for and return to them. There we go, vassalization achieved. Now we can kind of go mask off, not that the mask was really on. We've vassalized pretty much everyone we want to vassalize in these territories. So we can now begin our glorious conquest/reconquest. It's time to really march up the Yan, bring our army over, and then we're going to begin our lightning campaigns. Our goal is pretty much to conquer all of the Yan as fast as possible. We'll see how many wars it takes. First thing we're going to do, we're going to declare on Yanshen here. We'll full annex them. We're going to bring in their ally here, and we'll likely return their core that Jingdu has on them. Get that ticked off. Nice and easy. Even though we're currently at war, we're not going to stop here. We're going to declare another war. Going to be against Jietsang here. We're going to declare a reconquest war to return the cores of Tianlao and Jingdu. We could potentially full annex Zhongzhe here as part of the war, but I don't think we're going to. Not because there's a problem with doing it, but more because we want to avoid rushing a little too hard. I said we're going to conquer it as fast as possible, but we don't need to rush. It's more of a preference conquering as fast as possible, not a desperate thing we need to do. While we're at war in the east, we're also going to pounce on this small nation here, Yuanxi. We also have claims on them because they are in the Yanshen. So we're going to jump them, see about annexing them as well. Our first war has concluded. We'll return we'll take some of the land and return the one location to Jiangdu, nice and easy. I would declare war on the bird riders if we could, but we can't ever truce with them, so we're going to have to wait 4 years or so for that to expire. We've defeated the Zhongzhu here. As I said, we could full annex them, but we don't really need to or really want to. What we're going to say is just end your alliance with Jingxing, and then we'll come back for them later. Ooh, Jingxing caught us at his position here. They're likely going to defeat us here with our siege on Tianlao. In fact, they completely stack wiped us. Really caught us out of position there. It's not the end of the world. If there's one thing Bianfang can do, it's remax. Finished our war in the west. Guangxi is annexed. And we'll bring the rest of our army back east. We managed to catch their army. Now we'll see who gets annihilated, and of course it's them. They felt pretty good pouncing on our small sieging army, but the shoe's on the other foot now. There we go, we've beaten the Yanshen. We're not going to demand much for them, just so they return our cores for our vassals. Main reason we're doing this is because taking Tianlao alone is very expensive on war score. So we'll just grab that and be done with them for now. It's almost time for our truce to be up with the bird riders. And we'll do the same thing with them where we just return our vassals' cores. We're actually going to revoke march status from Hubao because we do need to integrate them. We'll need to get that underway as soon as possible. Ooh, the command has declared war on us. I thought they might, and it looks like they have. That of course brings in all the coalition members against them. Unfortunately, it's going to cost us dip to take provinces, but we could use this as an opportunity to really dismember the command and take all of the war camps they control. We'll have to see how it goes. They probably think they're stronger than us because we lost that small stack that was mainly made up of my vassals' armies that I'd integrated. So they're definitely thinking they're stronger than us. I don't quite agree. Before we do anything, let's complete this mission, Greater Discipline. This is one of those missions that takes quite a while because it requires quite a bit of army professionalism, 20%. We're currently at 33%. Mighty as our army may be, many loyal soldiers have been felled by the Jia dogs during our conquest of the outer reach of the Jiangji. Though for every one soldier we lose in battle, 10 loyal sons and daughters of Yanshen answer our call and take up arms to assist us in laying waste to the rest of the Jia that is so desperate to cling on to their so-called righteousness. But we cannot achieve such goals with sheer numbers. They say that victorious warriors win first and then go to war. With our great army must come great discipline, and our warriors must fight as one. Weakness and hesitation must be purged from our ranks. Gives us the Dragon Battalion modifier that will continuously be upgraded as we progress through the mission tree, eventually achieving the perfect army. We're quite a ways away from there though. We'll also get a bit of manpower for doing this mission. When it comes down to pure numbers, we really outnumber the command in this war. Do they have any manpower? No, it still looks like the command is relying on mercenaries. We can see here there's the Lion command up there. Army of the Boar, Army of the North, Monstrous Band, which means the command is going deep into its coffers to sustain its armies, which is both a good and a bad thing because the command has a lot of money. So it's going to be easy for them to sustain large armies by pulling from their coffers. But at the same time, because these are mercenary armies, if they're destroyed, the command isn't going to be able to re-summon them for quite a while. Thing is, well, if we can do enough damage to cause these armies to disperse, as it were. The goal of this war is our capital, Bianfang, which has been renamed to Zhaoming as part of our becoming Dahui. So all we really need to do is stay on the defensive. But I'm not really a stay on the defensive sort of guy. I try to, but my bloodlust is so great that I can't stop myself wanting to go on the attack. We're going to kind of just sit around and watch the armies of the coalition progress and see if there's points where we want to intervene. Ooh, looks like they're going to go on the offensive against us. Not sure if I agree with that strategy. I suppose they have a 5 fire general, so maybe he'll bridge the gap. Let's switch out to a discipline advisor for this fight, and I suppose we'll hope that allied forces head over to assist us. Oh, they hesitated. We should have waited for them to get locked in before we began the... I guess we could chase them. That's the sort of cockiness that gets you killed though. Although actually it's only going to catch the monstrous band, which is kind of perfect. We'll just grab the monstrous band, probably stack wipe them. Or they'll come back to reinforce them, and then we'll get caught in a not advantageous position. Hopefully our allies join the fight. If they do, we should be able to win pretty easily. Just because there's a lot of us. Yep, looks like we're able to push them back. We took pretty heavy casualties there, but we have abundant manpower, so it shouldn't be a huge problem. And since we have the numbers, taking losses matters more for them than it does for us. We really want to win this siege here. This is blocking our progress into the north of the country. Otherwise we have to go through the monstrous hills to get all the way into the depths of their nation. This is actually one of their only forts. They only have forts up in the far north in the caverns and one other one. So taking this will give us free reign for their whole country, but looks like they're not going to let us do it. They're bringing in a siege commander. The question is, will we be able to win this fight? I'm not feeling that confident, but I feel like we have to try. We do have reinforcements down here. If they would come up and support us, we would definitely win, I think. It's if. But let's try it. We definitely outnumber them. They're summoning some of their own... Oh, we should easily win. We've got all of the boys coming to help. Yep, there they go. Push them back. We actually dealt more casualties than we took, which is rare for a battle with the command. And there we go. Excellent timing for the siege to win. Now we can freely march north into the interior of the occupied territories, and the coalition can march with us. One of the command's armies has decided to siege down our fort up here, which is excellent. The free slaves are going to beat us to it though, but this is a great opportunity to deal a lot of damage. Unfortunately, this is just a mercenary army, but it's their sieging one. So doing big damage to it would be beneficial in the long run. They managed to beat them back. The command is doing pretty bad on manpower now. Only 36,000, and we can see it's this group here and this group here that is basically their whole army now. The army of the coalition is having no problem really just rolling over them. It looks like they sent another army to go siege that fort on the mountain. I guess they really just want to die up there. One thing I'd like to do is not really attack them while they're up there, just trap them up there and let the attrition do the work. But it seems our allies, they're not going to attack actually. I was going to say that it seems like our allies are desperate to murder them, which we will do the moment it looks like they're going to win the siege. But the longer they stay up there, the more attrition they're going to take. And while they're trapped up there means they're not intervening in the conflict elsewhere, allowing our allies and vassals to really just blanket siege the nation. Looks like they're getting close to winning the siege now, so we will jump them. We shouldn't even need support from our allies, just our armies alone should be enough to defeat them, and yep, there they go. We took quite a few casualties though, but they have a lot of cannons because this is their sieging army, sieging mercs. So they spawn with a lot of cannons. About time to start thinking about how we're going to end the war. As discussed, I think we're going to annihilate the Oni's only remaining province here. We're going to take the Lion war camp, and we're going to take their capital, which is the Boar war camp. Since when it comes to manpower, the command pulls manpower from all of its non-human provinces, it's better to take them than it is to take the human provinces, though human provinces are very cheap due to the disarmed population reducing the war score of taking them. But I'm thinking something like this. I really like to push the command up into the mountains and separate them from the interior in order to weaken them that way, as it essentially just splits their army up into two, the ones that are in the mountains and the ones that are in the low countries, I suppose we'd call them. Really, we're just waiting for the command to give up, essentially. They're close to. There we go. We'll take the land as discussed. Should we take some money? Nah, they're not willing to pay much. And there we go. Command beaten back. The command clearly underestimated us. Their mistake. Now that we're doing very good financially and manpower wise, we're going to start expanding our army in a big way. Is it time for us to start making cannons? I usually hold off on making cannons for probably longer than I should, just because the early cannons aren't very good. And I think we will continue to hold out. It's not cannon time yet. I'm not ready to cannon up. We're going to begin integrating Tianlao. They control the very valuable province of Tianlao itself, which we need for both our mission tree and because it's one of the most valuable provinces in the area. Time for us to continue our march. We're going to declare on the Bird Riders. This is going to be another small war. We're going to mainly just focus on returning the final amount of cores to our vassal here. Nothing too outlandish or crazy. We do have to be a little careful. We're down on manpower because of the Walk with Command and because I just expanded my armies. But the Bird Riders aren't that tough. They are at the same level of mill as us, so maybe I'm underestimating them, but I think it'll be fine. While we're at war with them, we're also going to attack Zhongju and finally eliminate them. They're guaranteed by the Bird Riders, so declaring war on the Bird Riders first allows us to then declare war on them without any possible interventions by bird-based individuals. And there we go. Zhongji removed from the board finally. Always nice to see a nation that we've been squabbling with for a while just finally get deleted. And there we go. A simple war. We're only taking a little bit of land. We could take more. Should we? Maybe we should. We could take all the land we need from... actually, they have these few locations over here. So we won't be able to fully take everything. So I think we'll leave it. I am also a little hesitant because we're close to going over our overextension limit. We have almost cored nearly all this land though. So maybe I'm hesitating too much, but it is what it is. We'll return the cores to our vassal. We'll take some money. Then we'll go back inward. We are becoming tapped on manpower a little bit. So we need to be a little careful. Yeah, so it might be time for a little relaxation. Only to let manpower replenish a little. We also need to continue increasing our army professionalism. It's not something we can afford to slack on. We can do this mission right now here, but I'm holding off on it because it's a mission related to these lands, and I feel like it's not thematic if we do it without controlling them directly. We'll wait until we integrate Jiangdu here. We can start building the golden highways, but a part of me doesn't really like to. They're nice, but I don't think they're that nice, and I'd rather preserve my admin. Also, if we're feeling up to it, if we fully upgrade the Great Project in Tianlao, then it will become half price to build golden highways, which isn't really worth it to wait that long just to get the slight decrease in cost, but it is something we could do if we really wanted to. We've managed to vassalize this Harpy nation here. I'm surprised they're even still alive, honestly. But they have lots of cores on land, so there's a lot of land that we could potentially return to them. And I always like helping my vassals grow. Funnily enough, they ended up becoming a magocracy, which isn't their normal style of governance, but it is what it is, I guess. Harpy mages, more likely than you think, apparently. Our truces are up, so it's time to continue our not so, or perhaps rather reckless expansion. We're going to declare war on Jingxi. We'll see if we can't finish them off. What's it looking like? Not quite. They do control lots of land up here though, and we don't really care about that. So just taking their land in Yan Shen should just be just fine, honestly. We'll go for their capital. But in reality, this war is kind of a trick. We're actually going to declare war on Dangan up here. They're a little strong, 33,000 men. Not that many compared to our 56,000 plus vassals though. But they've managed to spread down into Yanshen, so we'd like to remove them. Part of their army is already here on the border, so we're just going to jump them immediately, I think. What's the most expensive location they control? This one here. So we'll declare war with this one in mind. We'll see if we can't eliminate their army on the border, and then we'll march into their homelands. Hopefully we can take all of their Yansheni land without much problem. Yep, looks fine to me. Looks like we're going to finish our integration of Tianlao mid-war. I should have started integrating someone else. Should have started integrating Jiangdu during the war. But the idea didn't occur to me, and so it didn't happen. And there we go, Tianlao integrated. With Tianlao under our control, we now have our first ships in the game. One light ship, one cog. Looks like Jingsang has had enough. We'll exile them to the far north, where they'll hopefully just die. Has Dangan had enough? Almost. If we step foot on their capital, that might be enough to break their spirits. And there we go. This gives us near complete control of Yan Shen. There's just land controlled by the bird riders and this small nation here that has been pushed back all the way. They're guaranteed by the bird riders though, so what we'll likely do is declare war on the bird riders, then declare war on them, and destroy them both in one fell swoop. Although to be fair, maybe we're not the ones doing the fell swooping. We're not birds after all. Aha, the command has finally abandoned their northern lands in the mountains and have transitioned to being a nation fully on the mainland, outside of those mines. This is both a good and a bad thing. Good thing because it means they lose the very valuable northern provinces. Bad thing because it means we can no longer split them up between their southern and northern parts as we were doing a second ago. We'll have to see whether it ends up benefiting us in the end. One thing we will do is we're going to build forts in all these locations up here just to try and make it harder for the Jade March to intervene in a conflict. We've managed to build up Tianlao, so we can now finish the Jewel of the Yan Shen mission. This mission's pretty great as it gives Tianlao passive institution growth, so whichever institution exists, it's going to passively grow in Tianlao. The Great Temple, the Palace of the Divine Cool, the Hall of the Rising Sun, Tianlao has long been the nexus of Yan Shen, rightfully called the Desire of Conquerors. Rising like a great diamond from the mouth of the Yanhe, the city is strategically vital to secure the realms downriver. Moreover, returning the city to its full glory would be a signifier of our authority to all of Yan Shen. As discussed, it will start growing institution. I might just slap the advancement effort on this province and leave it up forever essentially, just to increase the rate of growth. We'll have to see though. Our only other option for growth would be if the dwarves developed for it, or if we were able to buy it from someone else, as I don't really want to dev for things, because as I mentioned before, I just don't particularly like to. Feels like cheating almost. Developing feels like cheating. Our truce is up with the command. I guess we'll have to see whether they attack us. I want to say it's unlikely because, you know, they got utterly destroyed last time, but this is the command we're talking about, and they don't abide by the same rules we do. They don't think the way we do. They see land and they just declare war for it. With that in mind, I'm a little hesitant to go to war with the bird riders now, even though our truce is up, just because what if the command attacks us from behind? But that's kind of babby talk, and we're not babbies here. So we're going to attack the chicken riders. As long as the command doesn't intervene, I really don't see any problems with this war. As discussed, we're also going to destroy this tiny little nation up here that is being guaranteed by the bird riders, because now the bird riders are at war with us and therefore we'll not be guaranteeing them. There's the small little nation destroyed. It was their own fault for being here in the first place. They should have stayed up in the north instead of marching south, causing trouble for us by taking land we needed. Now, we've gained access to our military reform. There's something to be said for going for Haramari. It decreases our leader's fire gain by 1, but as part of our ideas, we already gain a point of fire, so those kind of cancel each other out. And it does increase both the shock damage we do and the combat efficiency of our infantry, which are both great. Or we could go for Unfaltering Traditions, which gives that yearly army tradition of 0.5, which I quite like. We could also increase our tolerance of the harpies and go for them, but they're not that great honestly unless you really just want to siege stuff down. We could do something kind of crazy and actually go for hobgoblins. There is potential for us to tolerate and absorb hobgoblins into Dahui, but for now I think we're going to go with the Haramari idea, Predatorial Might, just to replace the infantry efficiency that we lost when we became Dahui. There, that's the Bird Riders defeated. We now have complete control of the Yan Shen. Just us and our vassals ruling over the whole thing. Excellent. Now that we have complete control over the Demon Hills, we can now decide what we're going to do with the Oni. The Oni to the north are the most feared monsters from which we have long guarded Yanshen, so long as they remain hermits, locking themselves up in their hills, fortresses to study vile tomes. They are a threat only to the local peasants whom they devour. However, they remain brutal and cunning warriors. They can wield devastating magic. They must not be allowed to visit their demonic malice upon our lands. Unfortunately, I'd love to click this event or this mission, but unfortunately because our ruler has, you guessed it, 3 personality traits, we'll have to wait for him to die before we can press it, or we'll be locking ourselves out of the choice we want to make. Such a pity, but I'm sure we'll survive. Luckily he's already 71, so he might die quickly. For some reason our rulers have been living a very long time, and it's not like I've been reloading saves to try and keep them alive, they just have lasted for ages. Shindu the Third though isn't looking too good. He's a coward, and he hasn't got 6 mil like all of his predecessors. We'll have to see whether he can buck his ideas up a little and fulfill his ancestral legacy, or whether he'll be the first failure amongst the family. But now that we've finished unifying Yan Shen, much like the Grand Old Duke of York, we have no choice, now that we've marched up the Yan, to march down the Yan, and that means you, command. The command is currently at war with Ma Hong to the south, so this might be an ample opportunity to jump them. What would the war look like? It'd be nice if we could pull in, I'm not really sure how to pronounce this one, but then I'm never sure how to pronounce anything. Buvari? Maybe? I'll probably just call them the free slaves, because that's kind of what they are. But if we could pull them in, I'd be very confident about I think we could beat the command easily. Whether we want to invest lots of our manpower into doing so, and time. If we bring in other people, it will speed things up. Alright, we're mostly in position. The command's taken a bit of a beating. They're down to only 49,000 men, so I think it's an ample opportunity for us to declare war. We'll do just that. We've maxed our score towards the side of the tree that gives us free manpower, so depending on how the war goes, we may call them up. For this war, what are we going to take? The Hobgoblins have moved their capital here to one of their last Hobgoblin locations. I'm rather fine with them keeping it. I'm thinking we take the Sur area. Quite valuable, it's directly on the border. We should perhaps start thinking about destroying their orc slaves. The Thunderfist has been reduced to a single province controlling the Jia capital, so we could full annex them. But at the same time, I kind of prefer to let the orc slaves have more land, because they're not very good with it, and their armies aren't very strong. So the more land they control, it feels like weaker the command is overall. Maybe that's just a placebo. This is what I think from a war like this. We'll take the Sur area and its 2 forts, and then we'll take the 1 fort here, and just try and thin out the amount of forts the command has, because they're really what slows the progress of any war. The command's definitely not feeling it, they're actively running away from us. So we try and chase them. Looks like we've caught some of them here though. I'd like to say they put up a good fight, but you know, they didn't really. Let's see if we can stack wipe them. There's only so far they can run, since they can no longer run up into the mountains. We definitely have more potential for catching their armies than we might have done in the past. Nope, I'm not sure where the command army went. They might have fled all the way down here into the land they've occupied there. Either way though, we'll just blanket siege their country, I suppose. This small group of goblins have managed to get trapped. Looks like the mass Songis went for them instead. That's too bad. I wanted to be the one to annihilate them. And there, we're kind of already done. We only fought, like what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 battles? And only 2 of them involved us, but the war's pretty much already over. We do have a bit of a problem though. The Ma Hong come north and started occupying territory, so we can't take that territory because they're occupying it. So with that in mind, what I'm thinking we do is we annex all of these nations that have been vassalized by the command, and we take their border with Ma Hong, kind of just push them back north. These provinces are very valuable, so grabbing all of them would be very nice for us. Plus we'll annihilate the Thunder Fists, always good to get rid of these orcs, I feel. Although, as I said, I can never quite decide whether it's better to keep them around or to annihilate them, but I suppose we'll annihilate them, if only because that's the situation we've kind of been pushed into. And we'll take the border Ma Hong has with them. The hope is Ma Hong will say, I don't share a border with the command. Oh, wait a minute. I think they just made peace. Yeah, and it was only a white peace. Oh well, I guess we can throw out that whole idea then. Let's go for what we were going to go for before. We'll take Sir. We'll take the fort here, and I think that'll be it. And in doing so, we'll kind of just cut the command in two. That doesn't matter as much in EU4 as it does in EU5, but we'll take a lot of forts from them, which will hopefully allow us to keep them divided in future wars, as they'll need to siege down the forts that we've taken from them for them to get to the two halves of their nation. And there we go, the command's had enough of a beating. We'll just take this, a lot of land, get a big bite out of the command, push them back. It does put us over our overextension limit, but I kind of like to play fast and loose with my overextension limit. We're going to complete this mission, One People Unified. For too long, the children of the Great Yan River have been divided between squabbling warlords and corrupt eunuchs, ripe for conquest by foreign powers. With the threat of the command looming over the horizon, we can't allow history to repeat itself. Under our authority and protection, the different people of the Yanshen shall be forged together into one, just as many grains of iron sand are forged into a mighty sword. This will reduce the cost of coring by 15% for 25 years, which is why we're going to activate it the moment we've taken a bunch of land. Now we're going to sit back and kind of focus on chewing this land that we've now taken. As I mentioned, we are over our aggressive expansion limit, so we do need to be a little careful. We definitely can't take more land in this situation. It looks like the Raj has taken the chance to attack the command now that they've been severely weakened. Probably the best time to do it, so I can't criticize them. Our ruler continues to live, pushing 80 at this point now. His son's in his 40s, we might have a very short second ruler. Alas, what can you do? I'm curious what the Raj is going to take from the command in this position. If we're lucky, they'll balkanize them and spit out a load of nations. If we're unlucky, they'll take a big bite out of them. We're actually going to make our ruler a general and see if he doesn't die by doing that. He's 80 now, so surely he can't last much longer. Oh, there we go. So the Raj took a few random provinces scattered around. They also released this nation here. We could maybe vassalize them. We'll have to see. Oh, they released Sir as well. Unfortunately, we took Sir land, so they'll never accept vassalization. They also released this nation here. And did they release... Yeah, it looks like they released the small city-states that were vassals of the command. So they're independent now as well. Delightfully devilish. You shouldn't have, Mr. Raj. We'll see if we can't convince any of these guys to maybe become our vassals. We'll be a much better master than the command was after all. Now that we've integrated Jiangdu, we can now do this Cries of Freedom event. The peasants of Lanjinhui violated the natural order when they overthrew their rightful lord and proclaimed all men to be equal. This absurd idea is nonetheless dangerous in the inspiration it gives to malcontents within our own realm. Just as a single shoot of a vine can strangle an entire tree, Lanjinhui must be uprooted, and these so-called blue scarves must be torn apart, thread by thread. It is a given in Yanshen that a disloyal officer will occasionally stir toothless peasants and greasy labourers into a frenzy with promises of liberation, only to seize power for himself. In 1433, Jiu Longjue led the Blue Scarf's militia to take up arms against Jinju Long's fellow warlord and rival, Hua Huang of Jiangdu. The Dragon King did not envision that a decade later the Ox Banner would fly over great swathes of eastern Yanshen. Had he known Lanjinhui would plant dangerous seeds of hope that they had a right to govern, he would have not dismissed the Blue Scarves as another peasant rabble. Astonishingly, Jiu Longjue proved true to his word. He became not another despotic general, but a first amongst equals in the new peasant republic. The resulting confederation of towns and villages was an affront to the divinely granted right to rule, owned by those of noble blood like the Long dynasty. Order itself called out for its destruction. By all that is right, these peasants ought to return to their station. 15 years of corvée labour as tribute from each household would do well to break their disillusions of equality. We must note, however, that our recent reports from our marshals describe a peasantry full of vitality and vigour, lacking in our own. They appear to be equally adept at wielding a sword as a plough, and nearly all of them can read, gifting us with a large pool of recruits to the lowest tiers of bureaucracy. While a full-fledged peasant republic must never be allowed to exist, perhaps allowing these commoners to retain some minor trappings of self-governance at the very local level could ease their transition into the rightful order of things. So we can pick the benevolent option, which reduces unrest and increases monthly autonomy gain in these territories. We'll also get a reduction to inventory cost by 10% for 25 years. Or we can say, we'll succeed where Hua Huang failed. Crush them. We'll devastate the land, force corvée labour on the territories for 25 years, and make nearly 2,000 ducats. And I think we're going to do that. Crush those peasants, remind them of their rightful place, aka being crushed. And there goes our ruler. Right on time. Well, not really right on time, as he was an old man, post 80, but better late than never, right? Now we're going to do two things. We're going to see if those hills truly have eyes. The Lords of the Demon Hills, the Horned Ogres, the corruptors and consumers of men, the Oni are known by many names across Hellas, all uttered with fear and disgust. Some more unorthodox scholars have suggested that they were the oldest kingdom in Hellas, whose territory spread as far as what would become the borders of Dahui itself. Regardless of their history, they were reviled in every corner of Hellas, from Bouvari to Baekdugang, holed up in their Shirigi fortresses, practicing their dark arts and collecting forbidden knowledge. They have been inward-facing and hermetic for centuries. Nonetheless, the constant threat that they would descend from their mountain strongholds, cross our borders, and fill the Yanhe with Dahuian blood and bodies demands that the Demon Hills be subjugated. The tens of thousands of our soldiers felled by their powerful mythical warriors were well worth the tens of millions which the Oni would have devoured. Our many citizens who follow the ascetic and transmutive paths, as well as the great majority of nations in Hellas, call for these demons to be hunted down to the last and the Shigiri be destroyed. However, the Oni are stewards of immense and ancient knowledge. Purging the Oni and destroying their libraries will erase that knowledge of great potential use of the Dragon Emperor. So we can do the benevolent thing and just completely annihilate the Onis, or we can say we will use their knowledge and teaching to crush all the enemies of Dahui. Everyone will of course hate that, will lose a stability. The ogres will become more tolerated though, and will gain secrets of the Oni for the rest of the game, which reduce both technology cost and idea cost by 5% each, and I think we're going to do that. There is a place for everyone in Dahui, whether they be Oni or demoned. Now there's one thing we need to correct. Our small vassal of Ji Yuan here, who has occupied this land for quite a long time and has been a staunch ally of us in our cause, it's time for us to bring them to heel. There is only one king in Yan Shen. An envoy from the eunuch king has arrived with an ornate invitation to his nephew's rite of purification. While watching a young boy be ritually castrated may turn the stomach of the virile men of Bianfang, we will nonetheless attend as his magnanimous protector and benefactor. Perhaps we should direct our officials in Jiyuan to source the finest food and drink from the city's merchant for the celebratory banquet, and as the road between Jiaoming and Jiyuan may be unsafe, we should be sure to bring a retinue of hardened warriors. Flutes and gongs, the smell of roasted meat and sweet mind, dancers and acrobats fill the palace's great halls as the eunuch lords of Jiyuan feast beside intact lords of Dahui. At the high table sits Dragon Emperor Jinyu III, Long of Dahui, eternal friend and protector to the scepterless kingdom, the ostensible honoree of the lavish banquet. Eunuch King Gao Cheng I Ji's nephew lies unconscious in the royal chambers, attended to by court physicians and herbalists, uncertain to survive this morning's rite of purification. But the house of Ji always has more nephews to choose from. Gao Cheng I himself laughs and drinks deeply from the silver goblet of rice wine. The drink and merriment has put out of mind the growing fear that one day Dahui's relentless march to unify Yan Shen would turn south and arrive at his gates. The plan had required subterfuge, not the brutal strength of Dahui's army, a bag of silver in the right hands, or a knife to the right throat, the vengeful heir of a banished merchant house financing the venture. A disgraced alchemist exiled from the House of Fire and Water supplied the poison, and the antidote for Jinju III and his retinue. The Dahui garrison commanders embedded in Jinyu towns would deploy at sundown, arrest and execute the local eunuch lords, and proclaim the new ruler of these lands, just as the main course is served in the palace. Gao Cheng I relishes the boiled dire python, brought from the remote Lupulan rainforest for the auspicious occasion. A moment later, with a rasping cough, blood splurts from his mouth, soon echoed by the gathering merchant lords and the members of the Zhu family. The eunuch king's sworn protector, the Summer Guard, are cut down as Jinyu III's heavily armoured retinue break through the Great Hall's doors. As Gao Cheng I crawls towards his throne, choking on his own blood, Jinyu III takes up his great chu and swings the mace down on his head. A scepter for a king. We lose 1 stability, 200 dip points, and for the next 25 years we'll have the legacy of the Jinyun massacre, which reduces our diplomatic reputation by 1 and decreases the rate at which we improve relationships by 10%. But of course, we'll inherit Jinyuan and will be seen as somewhat, only somewhat, more ruthless. I love it when a plan comes together. Da Hui is one and indivisible. Now is the part in the tree where we start to get held up by army professionalism. We're going to need to get our army professionalism all the way up to 90, which is going to take a little while, unfortunately. We could hypothetically just spam generals to get our stats up, but that's, you know, a little gamey. We don't need to do that. We can afford to wait a little while, right? Oh, and our current ruler is actually a powerful mage. But now, though, we're going to need to wait for him to have a son. I suppose we don't need to necessarily wait because our dynasty is now bound. It doesn't really matter if he dies without an heir. He should still be succeeded by a long... So we could make him a war mage if we felt the need to. When does our truce with the command end? 9 years. We do need to keep an eye on the command, though. They will eventually become demonstrized. They're currently semi-monstrized. Once they become demonstrized, we'll of course lose access to our monstrous casus belli on them. Ah, well, there's a child born. A powerful mage has been born. Only a 3/3/2, though. I'm not sure I like the sound of that. We'll see if he can survive to adulthood. The House of Long expects much better from its successors. We've managed to vassalize all these small city-states here. They're not very useful, but it's always nice to grab them because they control this vital river crossing and they often have forts, which makes it very hard for people to siege them down and time-consuming. And because they're so small, it's very easy to integrate them later. How are we doing on army professionalism? We're at 64%, that's pretty good. We need to get up to 75% to progress down our mission tree. We also need a few barracks. Then we can begin our imperial restructuring. Right, our truce with the command is over. This is it. We're going to be very close to full annexing the command in this war. We've stacked our province war score cost, so they're receiving -75, 10% from Ruthless Tyranny, 20% from the flexible negotiation from the dip tree, which I managed to rush down at the expense of my diplomatic technology, another 20% from the disarmed population, which is in most of the command's provinces, -25% because of religious war, which we've got from the era bonuses, and then it's further modified by -5% because of our admin efficiency, from getting to the end of our ideas. So this is going to be the big one, as it were. We're going to declare war with an anti-monstrous CB. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to full annex them. We may be able to reduce them down to a single location. Let's just look now. If we were just to take every single province, could we? I don't think so. Ah, and they've also got a lot of territory over here that we can't reach. That's an annoyance. That's very annoying. Because what we want to happen is we want to be the one to annex the command so that we gain the Jade March as our vassal. One thing we could do is fabricate a claim on Sur, and maybe if we can get that claim before the war ends, we can annex Sur and then get into that command land down the south. We'll have to see though. This is going to be a very greedy war. Man made the vital mistake of trying to siege down the forts here. It looks like the command is retreated up into the northern parts, so we can pretty much just keep them trapped up there, while our army just sieges down stuff here. If they can never successfully break down our wall of forts, we really don't need to worry about them. Our casus belli against Sur is online. Let's annihilate them so that we can get to the juicy innards of the command. Remember, it's all for the greater good. The command's the real evil. We're the heroes. I found out the other day you can actually see what advisors a nation has employed by hovering over their stats on the diplomacy page. Unfortunately, it doesn't tell you what kind of advisor, it just tells you they have one. At the very least, you can see what the points they're getting based on the skill of the advisor. Since I learned that, maybe I should give a piece of esoteric knowledge. If you have a spy network in a country, it affects how fast you siege down their provinces and affects how much aggressive expansion they gain on you when you take land. To be fair, everyone knows that. How about this? If you hold shift while clicking provinces, you can select multiple provinces at once and transfer them all to a nation at once. How about that? I imagine very few people know about that one. There goes Sir. Their blocking of our mighty advance has been stopped. So now what would the war look like? If we're going to leave the command with anything, we want them to be left with land that isn't bordering other nations so that no one else can come in and devour them. I think something like this, leave them with around 6. Oh, there's this little one here. We're not going to be able to get to this one. We're just going to have to hope someone attacks them and takes it. Is it a core of someone? Oh, we could release the nation there. We could release the nation there. How much would it cost us? Only 2. So yeah, I think we'll release the nation there. That way we don't have to worry about that. It would have been nice if we could have full annexed them, but you know, sometimes it just doesn't work that way. Sometimes you have to take a win, even if it's not quite the win you were looking for. And it's not like it's a big deal. We'll come back and get the command next time. It's going to take a little bit for us to rack up the war score needed though to win the war. So I guess let's settle in. Chain Grasper actually got called into the war as an ally. We don't really know of them though, so attacking them isn't really an option. They've managed to siege down all the provinces outside of the caves, so I guess we're going to have to go in. We're going to have to go into the caves. I always don't really like doing it. The command's scary, and fighting them in those deep, dark caves is even scarier. But needs must. And the sons of Dahui must spend their lives in the pursuit of our glory. And there we go. Took a bit of mountain warfare. We've managed to defeat the command and take most of their territory, reducing them to what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 locations. We went very much over our limit of land we were allowed to take, so it's going to take a little bit of downtime for us to fully integrate it all, so let's get on with that. We could release vassals, but honestly, I think vassal time's kind of over. We'll take vassals, and if we have vassals that have cores on things, we'll return those cores to them, but I don't think we're going to liberate any territory under the control of vassals. We're going to control it all directly. We're going to experience a bit of rebellion because of biting off a little more than we can chew, but the Dahuian army is very much armed and ready to deal with any malcontents, as the mission tree likes to call them. Just a few 100,000 rebels, nothing really to worry about. At the very least, we have a very large supply of manpower, so we're not going to bleed out fighting all these rebels. We managed to pass by our goal of 75 professionalism, so we can complete this mission. It's going to cost us manpower though, and I'm a little hesitant to use manpower based on our current situation. How good are we now? We're at 17, we're 175, but we're close to integrating a lot of these provinces. There's only a few rebellions left. Once we deal with these, we should be pretty secure. It's mainly just rebels back east we got to deal with. And there we go, we've managed to get a handle on things. Wasn't too bad, looked a little scary from the outside, but I think it was not a big deal at all. We did go a little into debt, but we should be able to pay that off fairly quickly. It was mainly due to taking large casualties and having to resupply the armies with manpower. As such, we can now finish the army's restructuring, which gives us the Dragon Army until the end of the game. This isn't the final modifier though. The final modifier will come with the perfect army. There were still little ways from getting that. We need to get 90 army professionalism, 70 army tradition. That's probably going to be the more difficult one, as it really can depend on events. But now we can really start progressing down our tree, starting with all under the Emperor. Since the first Dukes of Bianfang raised the citadel, we have stood guard over all the realms downriver. While the eunuchs may have looked down upon us as yokels and brigands, it was by the strength of our armies and discipline of our people that they lived their pampered lives. It is now clear that the only way to truly safeguard Yan Shen is to bring under the authority and protection of the Dragon Throne. And that, I think, is where we're going to leave it for today. We're at war with a nation down here, but that's just our allies doing it. We're supporting them, and I use the term very loosely. So where do we go from here? I think we'll finish off the command, steal the Jade March as a vassal. There's also Thunder Fist. We might fully annex them. Well, actually, if they never demonsterize, they are a vassal of the command. We could... It looks like the command is likely going to demonsterize, or at least I bet they're going to. They tend to do it pretty rapidly. So what we could do is declare war on Thunder Fist with the anti-monstrous CB. They'll call in the command, and then we'll full annex them that way. We'll have to see what it looks like, though. We're going to begin marching down our mission tree. We need to do a little bit of developing to get 30 provinces with at least 15 development. We're getting close to the point where we can begin our Yanification campaign. I'm looking forward to that. We are going to need to get our manpower up to 100% and build 20 farm estates before we can get there, though. So we might need to take a little bit of time of non-expansion to let our manpower replenish. But either way, that's something to consider for next time. I hope you enjoyed this video. Do let me know if you did, or if you didn't. I'm sure lots of people say you should demolish all your forts, but I've been keeping them because, as I mentioned, we're going to need to get a lot of army tradition. In preparation for that, I've been leaving forts around so that we won't have to build so many to get the full maintained forts modifier up to max. Hopefully it doesn't take too long to get our army tradition up to that 90. Is it 90? No, it's only 70. It's only 70. One thing we could do is switch out the army reform we got and instead go for unfaltering tradition for that 0.5. What's most likely going to happen though is we're just going to boost up to 70 at some point. Maybe we'll intentionally fight someone stronger than us and lose a bit so that we can really rack up the army tradition. We'll need to make sure that we've got that 90% army professionalism first though. For now, this is the end of the video. Thank you for watching again, and I'll see you next time.